Nafta, the North American Free Trade Agreement, is the pinnacle of America's complex trade system with two of our largest trade allies, Canada and Mexico. When Nafta was drafted in 1994, Investor-State Dispute Settlement, ISDS, was included to protect U.S. investments in Canada and Mexico. ISDS protects the interests of U.S. companies against foreign governments in investment disputes and allows companies to challenge discriminatory practices. But now that Nafta 2.0 is being negotiated, a few people mistakenly think that dropping ISDS will help the domestic economy. It simply doesn't work like that. Energy companies have to go where the resources are, ultimately supporting the U.S. economy and creating U.S. jobs. Luckily, there are significant resources nearby in Mexico and Canada, and we have an important trade relationship with each country. In recent years, the U.S. has shifted to an energy surplus with Mexico against an overall trade deficit. Meanwhile, Canada is our #1 source for imported crude oil, increasing significantly over the last 5 years. In 2013, Mexico opened its markets to energy investment and U.S. energy companies answered the call, bringing back benefits to the U.S. For example, Houston is the oil and natural gas capital of the world, and many U.S. investments abroad, including in Mexico and Canada, are supported by U.S. jobs in Houston and elsewhere throughout the country. But if we remove ISDS from Nafta 2.0, it will erode decades of progress, hurt American workers, weaken our energy and national security, and increase our trade deficit. The damage could be irreversible for many years to come. Let's make sure Nafta continues to protect our great nation, not hurt it.
History. Nafta began with the Economic Liberation Agreement, signed between the countries of the United States and Canada in 1988. And consequently, in 1992, the old threat was expanded with the entry of Mexico as member of the bloc, and from the moment until now. NAFTA's main object is free commercial movement between these three countries. NAFTA was signed in October 1992 by the President of Mexico, Carlos Salinas, the President of the United States, George Bush, and the Premier Minister of Canada, Brian Morley. However, it came into force in 1st January 1994. This proved some difficult at the time of the crash of the economic bloc. It has a favorable economy developed among the countries, achieves a significant increase in export and especially of agricultural products. There was also a growth in product and investment which created job opportunity and reduced the unemployment rate. Okay, the stakeholders are United States, Mexico, and Canada. NAFTA shows the elimination of customs and border obstacles to be able and to trade freely in the area of the agreement. Taking as a starting point the doctrine of the free trade, improvement competition, the protection of intellectual rights in each country, as well as create the mechanisms that will allow the application of the theory and in each country.
In addition to the action developed at the national level, the three new works work on the preparation of alternative proposals. These proposals were aimed at transforming the agreements of a free trade zone into a common market with an expansion of regulatory functions by supranational entities with democratic management based on a social environmental and human rights agenda. This common market should aim to create a socially fair and sustainable development model for North America, as is the title of the document proposal presented in September 1993. We have concluded that these agreements promote a model of economic integration that benefits a small sector in each of our countries at the cost of increasing social inequalities in the continuous degradation of ecosystems. We call for the rejection North America Free Trade Agreement at the beginning of new negotiations to develop rules that stimulate trade, investment, and mutually beneficial development activities. Our countries can reduce trade barriers and remove obstacles to investment, provided a new framework of initiatives is adopted, guiding them to promote well-paying jobs, vibrant communities, and a healthy environment. Our proposals are based on respect for basic human rights, promotion of democracy, citizen participation in decision-making, environmental sustainability, and realization of economic inequalities between and within countries.
Negotiation process. The treaty, in principle, was signed under the terms of joint administration. However, by adding amendments of expanding its radius of exercise to all Latin America through the FTAA, the institution of shared presidency was agreed. The resolution of problems, the structuring of the agreement, according to a point of the same, will have to be trilateral and in due course multilateral when its scope is extended. The three countries, according to Nafta, would have to access to markets of the other members through stimulating their economic development, encouraging investment. Nafta sought above all to eliminate tariff taxes on goods produced by these three nations and in their tax preference of other goods from other countries not subscribed on the agreement. The first step of NAFTA was to implement a policy to reduce the administrative procedures required of producers, importers, and exporters with the idea of facilitating their activities. On the tariff issue, NAFTA provided for a gradual modification to the laws of each country until they were equalized and tariff reduction was achieved, classifying goods and services in different categories to be included little by little in the benefit of the elimination of their corresponding tariff. The plan was to reach the zero rate in 10 years and in 15 years in specialty products such as North American orange juice and Mexican corn. The NAFTA is made up of preamble and 22 chapters grouped into 8 sections. In the first part, it gives the general definition of the agreement. In the second, it deals with trade in automotive, textile, energy, agricultural, petrochemical goods, as well as custom pressures. The third, fourth, and fifth part agree on technical barriers on the trade purchases from the public sector and investment and trading in services, respectively. The sixth part deals with intellectual property, and the seventh and last part contain the instrument for the resolution of controversies.
Results for each country: Mexico and United States. 4 tariff reduction lists were negotiated, one of an immediate nature, one of 5 years, another of 10 years, and finally one of 15 years. The preferentially tariff treatment was given for most of the products that Mexico sent to Canada and the United States. As of its entry into force, 79.9% of Mexican exports to the United States were duty-free. According to Voice, demonstrates, for example, that almost all of the price advantage that favors synthetic fibers over hemp, around 35%, would be eliminated if external environment factors were considered in the price structure. As we will see in the case of the Shanghai corn trade between Mexico and the United States. The flow and highly polluting economic activity occurs in the south-north direction. In addition, the liberalization of the economic, of which Nafta is an essential component, has followed the globalization of market fully, increasing environmental damage in the United States at the same time, threatening a global environmental and economic asset in the South. Mexico rich reserve of maize diversity. For example, the importance of corn. Corn is an extremely important agricultural product in both countries. In the United States, corn is one of the most important crops, with annual sales of around 70 billion, equivalent to 9% of the total value of agricultural production. It is the agricultural product with the highest value and represent more than 25% of total agriculture collection in the states of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, the center of the so-called Corn Belt. In addition, it is among the top 2 or 3 agricultural products of several neighboring states in terms of acquiring nationally. Corn is similar to the soybean and for excess all other crops. Corn occupies 28 million hectares, more than 20% of the acreage in the United States, or close to 3.7% of the total surface of the country, considering only the 44 contiguous states. Corn and soybeans are generally grown in rotation. Together they cover more than 14% of the cultivated area, or 7.5% of the area of the contiguous states. Corn exports account of nearly 20% of the corn grown, or 5 billion in sales. The United States is by far the largest producer and exporter of corn in the world, with 14% of world production and 66% of world exports, corresponding to 1999. The same year, Mexico reached 3% of world production and 7% of world imports. In 2032, Mexico was the second commercial destination for corn in the United States, surpassed only by Japan, with an 11% share of United States. Another country like Canada, the foreign exchange market. During the period of the FTA negotiation, there are There was a conspiracy theory that Canada had secretly pledged to keep the dollar at its then value around 89 US cents, given that the Canadian dollar is now floating between 15 and 69 cents. You can be said that one of two conclusions must be true. The comparison never existed, or it was carried out in a very inefficient way. The decline in the value of the Canadian dollar has certainly had an influence on the scoop and exports to United States.